Superintendent, I'd like to address our Spanish-speaking audience. Miembros de la comunidad, tenemos traducción simultánea. Pueden acceder a la junta, haciendo clic en el icono del mundo debajo de la pantalla, haciendo clic en el icono del mundo debajo de la pantalla. Gracias por estar con nosotros.
Good evening, buenas noches. Diana Jimenez, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
Good evening, Kubura Chang, Assistant Superintendent of Business.
Hello, everyone. I'm Diana Taveras, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
Thank you all very much. And again, thank you for joining us either in the room or on Zoom. Now move on to adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion? Thank you, Trustee Munson. Do we have a second to adopt the agenda? Thank you, Trustee Gardner. All in favor? Oh, sorry, student board member? Thank you. All others in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I do have a closed session action report, 2 items. First is by a vote of 5-0 with 2 abstentions, the abstentions being Andrade and Northrop Gaddis. 5 temporary certificated employees were non-reelected as certificated employees effective with the close of the 24-25 school year. Similarly, by a vote of 7-0, which is unanimous and no abstentions, 4 probationary certificated employees were non-reelected as certificated employees effective June 30th, 2025. That concludes the closed session action report. We'll move on now to recognitions and presentations. Tonight we're featuring Ann Sobrato High School, Principal Sage and the staff. Please take it away.
Update to you. And so I have a team with me, assistant principal as a counselor, and our professional development leads. And oh, there we go. Better. And so they're going to take it away, and then I'll be here to answer any questions that you have at the end. So here we go.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Kasanovich, and if we could move on to the next slide, I get to sort of introduce our students and our staff. So we are, and you're going to probably hear this a couple of times, we are essentially a small city. We are 1,500 students, and when we look at our students, we have a diverse group of students. Almost 1/3 of our students are classified as socioeconomically disadvantaged. Approximately 10% of our students are classified as English language learners. And this year we have 22 newcomers. So that's been a little bit of a difference. We don't generally have that many newcomers. And over 11% of our students are classified as students with disabilities. It's important to note that there is some overlap in those numbers. So we may have some students who are classified as socioeconomically disadvantaged who are also classified as, for example, an English language learner. When we look at our students by ethnicity, our 3 largest subgroups are white students, so just over 1/4 of our students, Hispanic students, 45%, and Asian students, almost 15%. And these numbers have held steady over the last couple of years, although we know that Morgan Hill is a community that is changing. It's changed over the last couple of decades, and it's going to continue to change, and we look forward to meeting the needs of our students. Next slide, please. All right. So when we look at our staff, we know that we have 1,500 learners, and it's our job to make sure that they get what they need. So almost 120 staff members, and we feel strongly that we have the expertise to support these students in pursuing both their personal goals and meeting their academic needs. So this slide illustrates some of the diversity of the course offerings. There are a lot of pictures there in the upper left-hand corner. That's the social studies department. I personally think it's the best looking of the departments. Down in, there's no bias there. Down in the lower right-hand corner, we've got our electives department. And if you see, you also see some pictures of some of our students. So we've got a picture of a student in our graphic design course, I want to say, right? In the upper right-hand corner, that's our floral design. Sports medicine is one of our most popular course offerings at Sobrato, down in the lower right-hand corner. We've got ceramics, and we've got such a range of expertise. We've got 39 staff members who have master's degrees. Most of them are in education, but we are really developing some of our CTE, career technical education pathways. We offer 14 different, we have 14 different CTE credentials. And this year we're partnering, and we have been, we've been partnering with Gavilan. We've got 4 teachers who are teaching dual enrollment courses, and I believe there are 6 different courses that they're teaching. We know that students have diverse interests. We know that there are a lot of things that they want and deserve out of the courses that are being offered, and our goal is to make sure that we can kind of meet some of those academic needs. Thank you. Next slide, please.
I'm going to lower this just because I'm not as tall. Good evening, everyone. I am Jen Baez. I am one of 4 academic counselors at Sobrato. I'm going to be talking a little bit about one of our CIPSA goals for the year, academic success, specifically looking at our A through G eligibility rates. And for those of you who don't know, A through G eligibility just refers to coursework and grades of C- or higher that students need to attain throughout high school in order to be admissible into four-year universities right after graduating. On our slide, we do have data from 2023. We use this as our baseline, sorry. This year, our overall goal is to graduate 65.8% of our students being A through G eligible. So again, meeting the coursework and the grades needed to be admissible into the four-year universities. We are hoping and working to increase every student group by 2 percentage points or more, and really focusing on our students identified as English learners and students with disabilities, just because we know that these groups of students are graduating at not the same equitable rate as other students. Next slide. Okay, as you can see here, we have a bunch of data, specifically looking at class of 2024, so our graduating class of last year. With this data that is being shown, it's our overall graduation rate. So last year, our graduation rate was at a 97.3%. We also have our A through G eligibility rates for last year. Of that 97.3%, 57% graduated A through G eligible. Down at the bottom, we have some completer rates for students taking and completing our career technical education pathways, as Ms. Kay did mention earlier in the earlier slide. Looking at the data, we do see a slight decrease of our A through G eligibility rates. One way that this can happen is a student earning just 1D or 1F in one of the courses needed in the specific subject areas that universities look at. And so just by having one of those, it tanks their eligibility rate, right? So meaning they don't have the opportunity to go directly to a four-year university. I do want to look at one of the student groups. Although majority of the student groups in that A through G eligibility category is slightly lower, our students with disabilities did increase by 10 percentage points. So good job there. For our career technical education completer rates down at the bottom, again, I do want to highlight our students with disabilities because they are graduating at a higher rate, having completed one of those pathways. And these pathways can be anything from the sports medicine that we touched on, our computer science program, our drama department, foods. So we have various different types of pathways that students can complete throughout high school. And really, these are elective classes that they choose to take, a hands-on exposure to something that may lead to a career path. And this is another way that we measure students being college and career ready after graduation.
Good evening. I'm Frankie Kellett. I'm one of the assistant principals at Sobrato. I'm going to speak about the next slide, which is specific actions our school is taking to meet that academic success goal. In terms of equity and access in courses, we have a partnership with Equal Opportunity Schools, which is an organization that helps us to increase access to AP courses and dual enrollment courses for our underrepresented student groups. In terms of school-wide reflection, our entire staff and student body take multiple opportunities throughout the year to reflect on grades, GPAs, and the iReady assessments to set individual goals for improvement. We have a focus on students who have IEPs, individual education plans. We have increased our inclusion courses to support students with IEPs. We currently have 26 sections, and those are in the subject areas of math, English, social studies, and science. We also focus on aligning curriculum and responding to student assessment through professional learning teams and staff professional development. We have common prep periods for most teachers, which means they get to work together in their PLTs, focusing especially in those core curricular areas. And Nicole's going to talk a little bit about PLTs later. And then finally, a focus on students classified as English learners. As Andrea said earlier, almost 10% of our students are classified as English learners. We have staff who act as coaches for students who are English learners. They meet weekly with students to help them navigate high school, to help them advocate for themselves as well. And then we also hold twice monthly meetings for the ELD team to align curriculum as well as align preparation for the LPAC test, which is one of the reclassification criteria for English learners.
Good evening. Mark Pierce, also one of the assistant principals. We also want to highlight one of our SIPSA goals, which is addressing school climate. Our goal by the end of June 2025 was to decrease chronic absenteeism by 5 percentage points, as well as our overall suspension rate by 1 percentage point. And one way that we decided to do that was to meet weekly for our climate and culture meetings. Our climate and culture team is comprised of assistant principals, counselors, community liaison, care counselor, as well as our school psychologists. And it's really cool because what we do is, like, if a student has missed 10% of school, we will put them on what's called a watch list, and one of our team members will not only reach out to the student, but will also reach out to the family to basically, get them to come to school. And we know that when students are coming to school regularly, they have that much more of a chance to be successful in school. If they do fall below that 10%, which is 18 total days in the year, we will figure out some additional supports that we can give the students and families. Next slide. Most recently, although the year is not finished, our trends so far through the months of August through February are that our students with disabilities have decreased by our goal of 5 percentage points, while our students who identify as English language learners continue to be an area of focus for our school site. Also, within the same time frame, we have seen a reduction in suspension rates by at least 10 percentage points through the same months.
I'm going to talk about a few more actions our school is taking to achieve our school climate goal. We have clearly communicated expectations, so students have regular opportunities to review our code of conduct with reminders through class time. We also educate students and provide them with restorative assignments when they do not yet meet those expectations. Our positive behavioral interventions and support team creates recognition programs for positive grades, attendance, and behavior for students. In terms of campus supervision, we have training for our campus supervision team, And we also have an app called Minga to assist us with hall passes this year. This app also helps us to encourage positive tutorial attendance and positive attendance at extracurricular activities. Some of these extracurricular activities include athletics, clubs, band, FFA, and theater, which Mickey will speak a little bit more about later. And finally, we also plan supports based on analysis of current data. So our climate and culture team looks at attendance and behavior data multiple times a month in order to plan individual, group, and site-wide supports.
All right. Good evening. My name is Nicole Berry. I'm a social studies teacher at Sobrato, and along with Andrea Kusanovich, we lead the professional learning team's work at our site. As the district's largest site, we have about 70 teachers participating in about 20 primary PLTs, which focus on our core subjects and the electives that are needed for graduation. Many teachers also participate in additional PLTs for their other subjects. Our PLTs meet at least once a week, including during our Wednesday morning collaboration time and during common preps. As you can see in these pictures, these are some of our various PLTs in action. Each quarter, our PLTs are expected to refine their pacing guides and unit plans that had previously been built to teach essential standards, because we've been at this work for a few years now. PLTs also give at least one common formative assessment and one common summative assessment for each unit. This year, we've tried to fine-tune our data analysis and planning for intervention based on student performance. Many departments are working on vertical alignment of skills and content standards, and we have also developed staff-wide goals to support math and reading instruction in all classrooms. And I have a teacher testimonial from our PE department. This teacher said, PLT work has helped foster a more cohesive and consistent learning experience for students. Teachers have collaborated to share best practices, resources, and strategies that cater to diverse student needs, ensuring a more dynamic and inclusive curriculum. Next slide, please. In regards to student engagement, we have really been focusing on reducing the number of absences and tardies at Sobrato. For the last year, our PBIS team has facilitated a quarterly celebration for students that meet our attendance and behavioral expectations. These students that meet our expectations get an early release to lunch on a specific day after the quarter has ended. And we were also the first high school to win the attendance competition back in September, and that's what those pictures are when the Minions came to our campus to celebrate with us. Thank you.
No easy feat for a high school. No.
Good evening. I'm Mickey Valea, one of the assistant principals at Sobrato. I'm here to talk about some of our extra offerings for our small city of students and staff. You can see in these slides some of our many sports, band, and club offerings. We have over 30 clubs and over 40 athletic teams. Sports participation student participation in school sports is approximately 769 students, or about 52% of our student body. Our theater society, Sobrato Theater Society, presents a fall play and a spring musical every single year. We have a robust FFA program, which participates in regional and statewide conferences and competitions. Our band has received consistent unanimous superior ratings at festivals and performs 4 concerts annually together with the choir. And just this last weekend, our choir teamed up with drama for a trip to Disney and Universal Studios to participate in some industry workshops. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. About twice a month, we publish the Bulldog Family newsletter and a counseling newsletter, which contains a lot of very helpful links for more information. We use these publications to communicate things like sporting events, band performances, drama productions, as well as all the other student events. Parents have noted that they really appreciate being kept up to date regarding events such as academic award ceremonies, back to school night, and course info night. Sobrato recently won the YMCA 2025 Caring School Climate Asset Champion. I will close our presentation with a quote from a parent from the nomination form. For the past 3 years, I have been a part of the Ann Sobrato High School community and love seeing the great things happening each day. It's comforting to know that my child receives support from dedicated teachers, wellness staff, care staff, academic counselors, freshman success coaches, and more. Every time I step onto campus, I feel the warmth and care they provide. Knowing my child is supported, respected, valued, and seen each day is truly amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate, we appreciate you hearing our update for our Sobrato Bulldog Nation. It's a shortened, it's hard to cover a lot. It's a comprehensive high school and we have a lot going on and there are so many things that it was like, oh, no, we don't got space. So, but we appreciate you having just a little taste of Sobrato, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Back on. Thank you very much, colleagues. Yes, I have. Okay, Vice President Andrade can go first.
First, I want to say thank you to the staff that was, especially in the office, you were always kind to a little child, I know.
Yes.
Yes. I do have a question. I was approached by a few students regarding AP Environmental Science.
Yes.
I know it's listed on your course catalog, and my understanding is it's not an available course. Could you provide me with some clarification?
Yes, sure.
As to what's happening with that?
Yeah. So AP Environmental Studies has been offered approximately every other year. So, and it's funny you mentioned that because we are, students have to pick and choose, right? So we kind of have to go with how many kids sign up for classes or whatever. So we are in the process of, we did not receive enough for Physics 2 this year. So we've got a space open to add a section of AP Environmental Studies. So students will receive notifications. They may have already went out, actually. Yes, they did. There you go. Perfect. Hooray. They went out already. So we are hoping to get another section and get that up and going again. So,
Thank you.
Trustee Marquez.
Thank you all for your presentations. That was wonderful information to share. Also very impressive is the 97.3% of the graduation rate. That is wonderful. Of that percentage, do you have data for how many students have gone off to colleges?
Yes. Yes. It ran through Naviance. We don't have Naviance anymore, and so we are looking for better ways to track it. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Jen?
I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but currently, like Ms. Sage said, we did use Naviance before, and so students would do a checkout where they would disclose where they were going to be attending. And so we're hoping that during senior checkout, we get that information, but again, it is self-reported, and so we're trying to come up with a way. Now we're using California colleges, so hopefully that's a better measure of like where students are actually attending.
Most go to 2 or a 4 year, and we have a number of kids that go to like Stanford, Princeton, Yale, those types of colleges. And then we have another chunk that go to UCs. We have another chunk that go to CSUs, and then a number that go to community colleges because that's an affordable option these days. So we found, particularly since COVID, that a lot more kids taking advantage of community college. And then some in the military. I have some exact numbers from the checkout when we sent transcripts last year that I can send. I just don't have them memorized, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Trustee Altman, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. The English department used to rock a lot too a couple of years ago. I got to work with Frankie when she was a teacher.
Yes, yes. Now she's our co-administrator of the year
yes,
for
and
AXA
congratulations
Region 8.
on
yes,
that.
Yes, yes,
I'm wondering, when did Sobrato start with PLCs, and has it changed much over the past 3 or 4 years, would you say?
Yeah, that's a fair question. We actually opened Sobrato in 2004 with PLCs. So DeForest questions, like that was what we started when we opened. I was there and I was part of it. And when Dr. Garcia came in and was reinvigorating the PLT process, it was great because we were able to see we had lended more towards the PLT light than the PLT strong. And so we've really worked to increase the strength. I made sure that all of our department chairs attended an official training. We attended trainings both as we onboarded, and we've continued the work this year. So we have an impressive artifact tracker that we've had since the start, and we continue to have PLT submit what they're working on, how they're tightening up their summative and formative assessments, and making sure that they're common. And then really, as Nicole said, highlighting the interventions, like how can we make tutorial work better for students? And hoping to dovetail that with the iReady information. We're highlighting it this year, I guess is the best way to put it. So we're in the learning mode. Yes, but we still definitely a strong thing, and able to give every core academic class a common prep period to be able to do the PLT work.
Thank you. Student Board Member Faruqi.
I wanted to ask about the PLTs. I guess this is kind of a bit broad, but what has and hasn't worked for the PLTs? Like what has, it can be like a student attendance or their effort in class or their actual performance in class. Like what has worked about their PLT efforts in order to have positive change in their classrooms?
So the PLTs are the teachers that are coming together.
I'll
So
get
like,
to you next.
No, I'm just saying, can we please explain to the public what a PLT is?
Sure.
Okay.
It's a professional
Okay.
learning
All right.
team.
Thank you.
And
you
so
wanted to go
they're teachers that are in teams. So for instance, we have a U.S. history PLT. So it's a team of teachers that teach U.S. history. And they get together and they look at their data. They figure out, they know their essential standards. They plan in common. They figure out how they want to assess, how they want to reteach or enrich, and then and then next steps from there. So it works well. I mean, sometimes when there's turnover in staffing, sometimes that puts the team has to readjust and things. So that part is maybe a little bit hard. Making sure, that we have test security and things like that it can be a challenge, but for the most part, they work really well together. And then the results end up in the results of our testing, our AP classes, those types of things. Does that answer your question?
I guess I wanted to know also what hasn't worked for them.
What hasn't worked is we don't have common preps for all of them. So some of our classes don't have a common prep. So then it's hard to get together. It's hard to find the time to get together to do that. And what hasn't worked is sometimes if you have a new teacher, it's challenging to get up to speed with teachers that have been teaching it for 10 years. So that is challenging for them to get the curriculum up and going and that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Munson?
Hi, thank you guys so much. Love the presentation, love all the information. I'm kind of partial. Both of my kids went there and my niece went there, so. But
All three of mine went.
Oh, what was that?
All three of my children graduated from Sobrato.
Yeah. So I just wanted, everybody highlighted some really good things. So I just wanted to highlight the watch list for absences. I love that idea. The students just want to be seen and heard and reached out to. So thank you for that. That's awesome. And the reduction in suspension rate, that's pretty amazing too. So you guys are doing a great work. Thank you for all that you guys do.
Thank you. Teamwork.
Anyone else? Huh? Follow-up question from the Vice President, please.
Yeah, if possible.
It's okay.
So one of the things you were talking about was the A to G requirements, and you wanted to boost that percentage.
Yes.
As a community college professor, I wonder, for the students who know that they want to go to a community college because California pays for the first 2 years free, regardless of income, and we know that a CSU is $100,000 for a 4-year education. What are you doing for the students who know absolutely, positively, I want to go to a community college, I don't want to take 4 years of math or 4 years of science? Like, what are the options for those students?
So our graduation requirements are default A to G. So they need to, they are going to be in those classes to get there and make the choice. We do try to give students so for instance, like 4 years of math. They have 3 years of math. We recommend a 4th year, even if you're going to community college, because you're going to find more success when you get to community college and have to pass your math class there, right? And in fact, that is an area that we are, one of the reasons our dual enrollment class of Math 14 is there, because like, for instance, Gavilan kind of struggles with getting kids to pass that math class. So sometimes it's a Gavilan class that they're taking, right? But we also are working like with Gavilan to do the Rama. Yep. Where the seniors are going to see the community college, we recommend, all kids go see it, because it's great to see a college, great to see, and to understand the free parts of community college and those types of things. We also have nights for financial aid to let families know about that as well. So kids have options, like they can take a 4th year of science, and a lot do, but they don't have to take a 4th year, but there is a 3-year requirement to graduate. So it's kind of baked in the system.
Thank you.
Yeah, yep.
All right, I'll ask one first to add my dittos to the many words of appreciation. That graduation rate is outstanding. The progress you've made on suspensions is outstanding. You've identified a few areas for continued growth, and I appreciate doing that. I think it was just mentioned verbally under the A to G completion rates. I heard like 57, 58%. Is that?
Yeah.
I don't think it's in the
57.
presentation. And there was a mention of, that's typically a course. I'm going to go out on the limb and ask the question, is that course most often integrated math 1 or 2?
The D?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be a math class. It could be an English class. Honestly, sometimes senioritis is a real thing. And like, you might get a kid that gets a D. They're all the way eligible until spring semester in English, and they get a D.
Yeah.
And it's game over. Like, so there's those cases, right? Like,
Thank you for that. For follow-up, it would be interesting. I'm sure you have that data, or maybe we do here at the district office, of the students that are graduating, but not quite making it to A to G, how many is it, one course,
versus
two courses,
many
3 or
courses.
more courses, and what those courses are? I think it would be very interesting to see that data. Maybe your PLTs are already looking at that kind of information, but it would be helpful to understand. I guess it's the old children aren't factories, but the old process engineer in me wants a Pareto chart, right? Okay, where are the challenges?
Yeah.
So
They
that
do,
would be-
the PLTs do a grade distribution analysis during every grading period. So they'll look and see, like, how many kids do we have? Like, and specifically, they can look at names to try to kind of calibrate as well as understand the data better. But yeah, looking at specific kids. I mean, you may have a student, that D stands for diploma, and like, they got through, right? And they're excited to get through, right? And we're cheering them on. They made it,
Yeah, no.
But sometimes it is as simple as a one class. So
Okay, anyhow, it'd be interesting. I know you all are looking at this and worrying about this every day. So I don't want to come across as being unduly critical. That certainly isn't the intention. I just appreciate all the work you're doing. I appreciate highlighting career education. That's something that often gets lost when people think about school and academics. It doesn't get lost in this district or at Sobrato. So thank you for highlighting that and for all the work you do. And I can't wait for my next opportunity to come visit. Thank you.
It is, yes, thank you. It is a good, CTE is very strong at our school, and we're very proud of that. And we will continue to look at the data. Definitely Executive Cab can certainly attest to, I am a competitive person, and I'm not satisfied until we have it all. So there's that.
Great,
There you
thank you.
go.
I think
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Garcia has
I
something
just
to add here.
wanted to add that the 24-25 school year is Sobrado's 20th year, and so we
yes.
celebrated in the fall, but I
cake.
want to highlight that again. Happy 20th, Sobrado. Secondly, I want to thank you, Teresa, for your leadership and for demonstrating and modeling what collective efficacy looks like, where your entire organization rows in the same direction, and that is proof in Sobrado. And also, thank you for the distributive leadership that you model as well, where obviously you are the principal, you are the head, but you have deputized your entire staff to take ownership of the work. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you all staff as well for your
Yes,
great work
yes.
at Sobrado.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you.
Very good, thank you very much. That wraps up that item. Thank you for getting us off to a great start. So our next item is G1, approval of the minutes from the February 11th meeting. Do we have any comments or corrections? If hearing none, a motion to approve? A motion from trustee Munson. Do we have a second? Sorry. You gonna rock, paper, scissors? Okay, second by trustee Altman. Student board member? Thank you. All the trustees, aye if you agree. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Now I will move on to public comment and communications. This is for area items not on tonight's agenda. Members of the public may address the board on topics not listed on the agenda. However, the board may not discuss issues raised as they are not listed on the agenda. Topics brought to the board's attention may be investigated by administration and reported to the board publicly or privately in the future. And comments by visitors shall not exceed 3 minutes per person. First up, we have Wendy Werner. Is Ms. Werner here? Hello, please. I'm sorry? Okay, very good. Well, thank you for being here just the same. Then Sonia Bennett. Is Sonia? Oh, there's Sonia. Ms. Bennett, please.
Price is right.
Got our timer working here today? Please.
Good afternoon. I got great news today. I made it to the second annual Explore STEM Fair on Saturday, and it was fabulous. And I am disappointed that not everybody on the board and not every school site, not every single parent made it out there. I sound like Mary now, right? It was an amazing event. It was absolutely amazing. It was hosted by the South Valley Engineering and Science Initiative, the Morgan Hill Community Foundation, Kiwanis, and AAUW. I went because we have a science fair coming up at Paradise in 3 weeks, and I wanted to get ideas on the cheap, on the down low, and not being able to have to spend money out of our pocket because we're in a budget crisis. And so many ideas were there. It was just absolutely amazing. I saw Dr. Garcia, I saw Adam Escoto, I saw Rebecca Munson, Trustee Munson. Just an absolutely amazing event, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I have so many ideas, so many people to call just from the event, just to try to get some goodies for our Paradise Science Fair coming up in 3 weeks, which I want everybody to show up at because it is also our open house. I don't have the date offhand, but a couple other things going on. I always like to come here because I find that I'm the parent, kind of like the board member from the school districts. I want to be that parent from elementary school to say, hey, this is what's going on in our world. The human growth and development curriculum is of concern. It is out there for everybody to view. There is online versions as well, and Julie's done a really great job putting the schedule together for the info sessions at the school sites. So there's several of them. Parents out there, you need to show up. And if you don't show up at your school, show up at another school because there's going to be 7 of them, right, Julie? There's going to be plenty of opportunity to show up and see the curriculum, ask questions, and determine if you're going to opt out or not. Also, thirdly, the budget concerns. It's on the agenda today. expenditures, revenue. There are several gaps, got several questions. I am certain that Culvera is going to cover these in long detail, and I'm looking forward to that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Okay, very good. Appreciate that. Sorry to have missed this year's science event. I've been at most of them. Moving on to board member communications, our student board member. Okay. Do you want to go on to yours? Okay, we're going to slight reordering. We'll do the superintendent's report and then come back to our student board member. Just in good use of time as we get through the technical exchange here. Take it away, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you so much, President Horner. I'd like to hand this over to Assistant Superintendent Taveras to do the initial update.
Good evening again. I am delighted to introduce you to our candidate for HR Director, Mr. Alex Asen. He has been a teacher, an assistant principal, and a principal in our district for over 18 years now. He is absolutely dedicated to supporting the students, families, and staff of our district. And with no further ado, I present you with Mr. Alex Asen.
Good evening. I'm very excited to be here. This is a wonderful opportunity. I've been dedicated to this district for 18 years, and it feels like a second home. The district itself feels like a family, and I'm very, very excited for this opportunity. Thank you.
Additionally, most of our administrators are part of a professional organization called ACSA, which is the Association of California School Administrators. It is a very elite professional organization that we love being a part of, and we are very honored to have 3 successful nominations for Administrator of the Year. So first we have our very own Reina Gonzalez, who is classified Administrator of the Year. We also have Frankie Collette, who you just saw presenting from Sobrato. She is the co-Administrator of the Year at the secondary level. And lastly, we have our very own superintendent, Dr. Carmen Garcia, was selected as Superintendent of the Year. So please, let's give all of them a round of applause.
As is customary, I'm providing just an update since our last board meeting. I want to extend congratulations to our winners of our Chamber of Commerce Celebrate. So Mr. Christopher DeMello, excellent teacher at Sobrato, a drama teacher at Sobrato, was recently recognized and surprised at Sobrato in his classroom in front of his students as the Educator of the Year. And student Ethan Lay, he is also a student at Sobrato. He was surprised in his classroom as well as the Student of the Year, and both will be recognized at an upcoming Chamber event. Delighted to have participated at the Sobrato High School Awards Assemblies, 4 assemblies where we collectively shook hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hands. A lot of hard work represented on that piece of paper. So congratulations to all of our students. Also attended the Live Oak High School Awards Assemblies, and Live Oak does it differently. They did it differently this year. They actually had the students in the ASB class present, welcome the parents. They did the welcoming and the speeches. It was absolutely wonderful. Principal Diaz tells me that this is a practice that they used to do years ago that they have now gone back to. And so it's wonderful to hand the mic over to our students. So congratulations to all of the honorees at Live Oak High School as well. Another huge congratulations, mega congratulations, our students are kicking butt, and I'm so happy to highlight them. Autumn Mongaray, she is a student at Live Oak High School. She participated in the Rotary Club speech competition. They do this on an annual basis, and she took second place. Frankly, I think she should have won, but I wasn't a judge. But Autumn was absolutely excellent. And also a huge thank you to Mohai Farms. You all recall that we talked about the Grilling for Growth fundraiser that happened last year, yes, the month is escaping me. And it was in downtown Morgan Hill, and all of the proceeds were to benefit the culinary arts pathway at Live Oak High School. And so they issued the check recently, and it was $34,621.67. This is going to be an annual event. And the Grilling for Growth will be almost doubling in size. So we're eagerly anticipating a lot more dollars that will be donated to support the pathway at Live Oak High School. And if Sobrato wants to also start a pathway, then I'm pretty confident that we can invest these dollars with them as well. I continue my chats with Carmen in the community. And again, these are chats that I have on a monthly basis. I have done so since I began here 4 years ago, and I plan to continue to do so. Love conversations with our parents and our community members. There's no agenda to these coffee chats other than let's talk. And so I really look forward to those coffee chats on a monthly basis. The South Valley Science and Engineering Initiative was pretty fantastic. Dozens and dozens and dozens of hands-on opportunities for our students to experience STEAM opportunities, hands-on opportunities. So essentially it was a potpourri of science. Britain was quite alive on Saturday. Read Across America is tomorrow. We will be celebrating it tomorrow. Again, that was a tradition that used to occur here in this district. We brought it back. So March the 5th, thank you to our dozens of volunteers who will be reading to our students tomorrow. I will be reading at San Martin Guen. I will be reading to 2 different classrooms in Espanol, and I look forward to that. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. We have the student board member report queued up and ready to go. Over to you.
So this is my report for the March month. With Sobrato High School, they have their Sobrato Band and Choir Spring Concert on the 27th, and their Spring Fling is on the week of March 24th and 28th. The Marching Band, they have their concert, for Live Oak, they have their concert on March 19th, and they have their theater Spring Play from the 27th to the 29th. Britain has their band concert at Sobrato High School on the 22nd, and El Toro is doing a bowl round kind of fundraiser on March 14th, and they're having their award ceremony on the 27th. Central High School has their open house on March 13th, and Barrett Elementary School is holding computer literacy classes at the Face Center on March 6th and the 13th. Paradise Valley, they're having this wellness activity this Friday. It's like this rainbow collage. They have their 4th and 5th grade award ceremony on the 21st. They have their book fair on the 24th to the 28th week. Their science fair that Miss Sonny Bennett brought up earlier, it's on the 27th. That's the date. Her open house, again, same date to the 27th. And they have their family dance tomorrow on the 5th. Los Paseos has their school dance on the March 21st. And PA Walsh, this is one of the school sites who's holding the Parent Info Night for the Human Body Growth Curriculum. It's on March 25th at PA Walsh. Nordstrom is holding their science camp on from March 11th to the 14th. San Martin Gwen is holding this fun run and color party fundraiser on March 28th. And this week is San Martin Gwen Si Se Puede Week. Yes, we can. They held an assembly yesterday. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Member Faruqi. Okay, we'll now move to item I3, employee group reports. Understand Morgan Hill Classified Employees is not having a report tonight, is that correct? Okay, very good. Morgan Hill Federation of Teachers President Jim Levis. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, all. Good evening, President Horner, Board Trustees, Superintendent Garcia, staff and guests. I am Jim Levis, the proud president of the Morgan Hill Federation of Teachers, and I'd like to thank Sobrato, who's all left, for their presentation. They get to go get ready for tomorrow. I did want to start out, however, by congratulating Chris DeMello for his recent acknowledgement as Teacher of the Year by the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. So a great job and well-deserved by Chris. Since the last board meeting, I've been continued to be impressed by the hard work that I see members providing their students. This, of course, often goes, they are often going the extra mile as needed and often unrecognized. MHFT members and students also had President's Week off, providing an opportunity in February to recharge prior to coming back this last week. Elementary second trimester ends this Friday, so MHFT members are busy completing report cards and updating the families of their students' progress. MHFT members are also getting into the full swing of spring testing. Elementary members are engaged with LPAC testing for our English language learners, educational software for guiding instruction, or ESGI, iReady for math and reading, and Literably for foundational literacy skills. Not working well today. Secondary members are also testing their skills with iReady or testing their students with iReady and LPAC, along with benchmark testings in their other classes. Our high school AP teachers continue preparing our students for their AP tests, which will begin starting in May. And of course, CASP state testing starts up in late March and early April for our 3rd to 8th and 11th grade students. Members have also been having discussions and talks about scheduling shifts and changes due to the upcoming testing while still delivering curriculum and content. I want to thank all teachers and staff for helping out with all this testing and schedule adjustments. It definitely takes everyone working together to make it go smoothly. I would like to acknowledge all the work of the American Federation of Teachers and the California Federation of Teachers, our state and federal parent organizations, and MHFT members in regards to the current potential immigration issues facing our students and families. I would like to especially thank QA Nguyen and Avery Unterreiner, two of our office staff who have taken the lead and been working for months to provide many materials and resources for all of our members through biweekly Executive Council recaps and monthly member newsletters. MHFT office staff would also like to thank the Executive Cabinet, Superintendent Garcia, and Assistant Superintendents Cheng, Jimenez, and Tavares for meeting with us just before break. We had a transparent, collaborative, and productive meeting and began discussing this matter with district leadership at that meeting. So thank you and good evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levis. Thank you also for the written report you sent on community and family engagement. Appreciate that. Okay, we now move on to Mahela, Morgan Hill Educational Leaders Association with Mr. Buxer. Is Mr. Buxer on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. Zooming in from a planet nearby, hopefully.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. You have a halo.
How's that? Is that better? There we go.
Halo.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. Patrick Buxer, President, Morgan Hill Educational Leadership Association. From Mahela, we have a student service report tonight. Our sites had district PBIS professional development meetings the last couple of weeks, and they're getting ready for the tiered fidelity inventory site visits. This is when the team comes out, interviews kids and staff, and goes through a protocol to ensure that we are following all of the procedures to properly implement our PBIS. So we're applying for different levels of gold, silver, platinum, different levels of awards across the sites according to implementation. Furthermore, Student Services team attended an ARIES conference looking at the new bells and whistles regarding the student data system, which will only help us with more accurate documentation. And the Student Services team also launched the Saturday Academies. It's a little different than the Breakfast Club Saturday School. This is more of a different approach, identifying students that are close to the 90% attendance threshold to get them over that chronic truancy benchmark. So that's something that more information is coming out. Information went out to teachers, so look for more information coming shortly. Our principals and leadership went through an inclusion professional development led by our ESD staff, focusing on identifying appropriate standards, unpacking the different standards, and helping a truly inclusive model toward teaching and learning in our classrooms, which creates more of a fear of failure environment for all of our students. Our principals are working on your SIPSs, our SIPSs, to analyze data, identify current needs, and create the goals for next year's. So those will be coming towards you at the end of this year. And finally, a huge congratulations to Frankie, Reina, and Dr. Garcia for their awards. Well-deserved, and we're very, very grateful that our district has strong representation in AXA Region 8 this year. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Bookser, and thank you to all the people you represent for all the work. Okay. We are now on to board member reports. Board members, anyone start off with a report of their related activities? Trustee Munson, please.
Okay, I got to attend the Science and Engineering Fair at Britain. It was amazing. It was great. I wish there was a little bit more participation. I don't know about the communication. I know it was communicated through schools, but maybe if it came from the district, it might have got a little bit more. But sports, right? Kids with their sports and stuff. But it was a great event. It was amazing. And I can't wait till they have it next year. So that's what I did.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Trustee Marquez, please.
I attended the monthly Community Asset Builders meeting as an alternate board member. And it's a monthly gathering, and I found it very interesting. One of the speakers, Joey Din, presented the Healthy Neighborhoods for All initiatives. It's to improve community health and equity, particularly for youth and vulnerable populations. So they're inviting volunteers. If anybody wants information, I have links that I can send to anybody. It's a great initiative that they're doing. Jessie Swift, she introduced the Saturday Academy, which is set to begin March 15th. It's to provide enrichment activities for students to recover attendance. I think that's a really great program that she's doing. So it's good for them. It's helping the students. There's several other things that they talked about and that they have links that I won't go into, but it was a good meeting. Tomorrow I'm reading at the school Los Paseos for Read Across reading, and I'll be reading to the second graders, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else? Did you want to have something else you wanted to add? Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll just go around. It makes it easy, yeah.
Totally makes it easy.
So I went to the Personnel Commission meeting, and they are currently reviewing their rules and regs, so going through policy line by line. Something that Diana mentioned at the meeting was that the county is offering teaching credentials to special ed teacher paras, right? With a $25,000 stipend. Wow. So it's a really incredible opportunity for our staff, and I thought that was really exciting.
That's great. Thank you. Vice President Andrade.
Yes, so in my last school board partners meeting, part of the cohort I'm in, we had a speaker from Intuit, the company that does the tax software. And their company provides free curriculum for financial literacy courses, which I was like, excuse me? send me the link. So I got the link for all of the, and they're basically it's on the computer. You log in, it tracks everything. What's really great about it is that it as a student you can go through a model of applying for a loan and seeing how much that dream car or truck, gentlemen, is going to cost you with your total sum of payments. So I thought that that was really great, and especially that it's free. Again, that I said it's free. And then the other thing that I failed to mention in February, and I just wanted to share this publicly, is that I attended an event at the Harker Private School in off Saratoga Avenue in San Jose to see the speaker, Clarence Jones, Dr. Jones. He was the co-writer of the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King. He worked with King. And so I had the opportunity to speak with him. He recently published a book called Last of the Lions. And it was just surreal to touch the hand that also touched the hand of Dr. MLK. So I left that event very, very overwhelmed with emotion. So I wanted to share that out with you. I thought that was really, and just so you know, he was the co-architect of the I Have a Dream speech. He specifically gave Dr. King the metaphor for we are here to cash a check marked insufficient funds. That was his idea. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much. Coming over here to Trustee Altman.
So I zoomed into the SCC School Board Association meeting last week, and believe it or not, rules keep changing for things, and it sounded like there's an update to high school graduation options for foster youth, and I'm trusting that CSBA sends out updates to us so we can stay current in our policy. But if not, the policy committee needs to look into this, that students don't get called out quite as much if they're foster youth and they have a pathway available to them. You know, sometimes I feel like we're living in Lake Wobegon, because when we go to these awards assemblies, oh my goodness, our students are doing so well and we're shaking so many hands. And so I was able to get to Britain's, one of Sobrato's awards assemblies and one of Live Oak assemblies. And the challenge is that so many students are doing so well that there's multiple ceremonies and it just becomes prohibitive. So I hope the staff understands that, you know, we try to get there, but it is a challenge, except for President Horner, who seems to make it to every single one, and I commend you for that. Yeah, I haven't been to one where he hasn't been there yet, but it's so impressive, and these students work so hard, and they deserve all of the recognition they get. So that's great, and yeah, and I'm really looking forward. I'm on a couple committees, and I'm hoping that, that we'll be getting information when and where they're meeting, so that for our committee assignments, we're going to be ready to go. And that's it for me.
Anything you'd like to add, Trustee Gardner? No? Yeah. Okay, not this. Okay, I'll add a few things. Thank you. Yeah, I did make it to all of the Live Oak and Sobrato Awards assemblies, which was wonderful. I'm lucky enough not to have a day job, which people ask me, are you retired? I said, well, nobody's really paying me, so I'm not sure if I'm retired, but it's just, it's wonderful to, one of the best parts of this job is anytime you get to congratulate students on a job well done. It's so anytime somebody can make it, I highly recommend it. It's really, really a wonderful thing to do. Also report briefly on our Morgan Hill Unified Education Foundation. You know, we're now coming to the end of our first year of operation. We are planning a celebration of that in April. The date and time are not fully set yet, so as soon as we have that, we'll get it out. But featuring some of the amazing work of our students and those that we've worked with. We're also very close to naming 3 new additional community board members, which has been a strategic initiative for the last couple of months. So that will be coming soon. And then also building out the Dr. Garcia mentioned the MOHI effort around raising funds, in this case specifically for our culinary and hospitality pathways. That money's actually was given to the foundation, and we're working with the site on how exactly to utilize those funds. And so having it in a foundation gives a lot of flexibility as far as timing and that sort of thing. And I was concerned. I was wondering the Leal or Mohai organization and said, what do you need from us? Do you need documents, MOUs? I said, no, we just need to be able to trust that you're going to use this for culinary and hospitality, and we're counting on you to do that. So the contract was a handshake, but we will certainly live up to that. And kind of a preview, the thought is some of that will be used for some immediate needs, and also particularly at Live Oak, they're looking at, well, if we can combine that with some other funds over years, can we do some really significant things in terms of facilities there? And, related to that, I happened with the County Association to have made a visit to Metro Ed, or the Silicon Valley Career Technical Education. I don't know what the long name is now. I still call it Metro Ed, but and we visited their culinary program, which is amazing. It's a terrific program, full-on commercial kitchen run as a business. I mean, what the students are doing there is really significant and dramatic. These are students that go to their home high school for half day and then come there for half day. Gilroy is sending a few students up there. We have not historically done that, but that's something we can continue looking at. Transportation and other issues with that model can be significant hurdles, but if Gilroy can figure it out. But I asked, well, okay, how many is Gilroy doing? Well, 3. Okay, well, but for those 3 students, maybe that's just the thing that gets them what they need. Other county-related things, we're in the final stages of planning the annual legislative brunch. If you've never gone or you have gone, I still recommend going if at all possible. It's this coming Saturday at the Fremont Union High School District Office, which is actually, I think, in Sunnyvale. It's nowhere near Fremont, so it gets very confusing, but that guy Fremont got his name all over the place. But the moderator will again be John Fensterwald, probably the most well-known and one of the most capable education reporters in the state, been doing that work a long time. So he will be running the event and asking the questions. We're starting with Linda Darling Hammond. Interesting question for her is like, so what's she hearing about changes at the federal level and how that's going to affect us? Everybody just guessing. So it'd be interesting to hear what her guesses are. But she talks to a lot of the people that might have information. The Board of Supervisors, we have Otto Lee, the Supervisor Board President in Santa Clara County, and also Margaret Abe Koga and Betty Duong. Betty was just elected, but she was Cindy Chavez's Chief of Staff and now has the same seat that Cindy had. So she's new, but not new. I mean, she's not new to the topics and the work. From the Assembly, Patrick Ahrens, who was just elected, he went there from a community college board. And Al Martucci, who amongst other, so he's out of SoCal. This is the first time we've had someone from SoCal. He wants to be there because he's put his name in the hat to run for state superintendent because Tony Thurmond is terming out here this next time around. So it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. And then also Mark Berman from the State Assembly and Senate, Aisha Wahab, Josh Becker, Dave Cortese, and John Laird. So it's quite these are very involved people. It's going to be, and they all have like 5, 10, 20 minutes on panels. It's going to be an action-packed morning, but so that's right around the corner. And then other activity, report brief, it was, we had our Rock the Mock team debrief. Really excited to have our second year back in the post-pandemic era. The school sites and everybody involved and the volunteers did a wonderful job. And the way it was done at Sobrato this year, the whole senior class was there and it was done in 3 sessions instead of 4. So we had, took about 60 volunteers to get everybody the resources they needed. So it was noisy and it was crowded and it was wonderful. And it's always particularly great to hear from the adults that participate. Some new, some keep coming back. But the most common thing is, wow, what interesting and terrific young people we have in our community. So many of you, often one of my thematic things is those 75% of adults that don't have contact with the schools, let's get them in, let's get them involved, get them see what's going on, get them experiencing our students. And every time we get the opportunity to do that, they come away really pleased and impressed. So that's a tribute to everyone. Okay, that's it. That's my report. Anything else on board member reports?
I'm exhausted listening to
Yeah, so,
that. You're busy.
like I said, nobody's paying me, but I'm not retired. Okay, so moving on to the calendar of upcoming events that is published. I'm not going to read it aloud to you, but these are items specific that the board is involved in or invited to. And if you're interested, you can read them online. Next, we have our consent items. Do we have any requests for pulling consent items for discussion or comment? You can pull for discussion, or if you just have a brief comment on one, you can make your brief comment before we vote.
I'd like
Trustee Altman?
J2C.
So J2C, pulled by Trustee Altman. Okay. Any others? Seeing no others, do we have a motion to approve the remaining consent items?
I move that we approve the remaining consent items.
Thank you, Trustee Altman. Do we have a second? Sorry? Okay, thank you, Trustee Munson. This is my bad ear, I'm sorry. Okay, student board member? Aye. Thank you. All other trustees, if you agree, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes unanimously. Okay, so we will now address J2C. That's the personnel action item, correct?
That's what I was aiming for.
Okay,
I've been
well,
known to miss.
Well,
So-
okay, so your question or comment, please, Trustee Altman.
Yeah, I think the world of Principal Asen. If we are going to keep cuts away from the students, we are not going to be increasing the staff in the, especially admin staff in the district office. This position, the position as Director of Human Resources has never existed. Until COVID, there had never been a supervisor position in HR, and that position was intended to go away. That one remains. If we have found money, which it sounds like, so there's been some money that's been identified to cover this, we shouldn't be cutting staff who works, certificated staff who work directly with our students, which includes teachers and administrators at the site level. So that is why I pulled that.
Okay, so it sounds like if and when it comes to a vote, you're no on this item, at least for that one line item. Would staff, superintendent or any of our assistant superintendents like to respond?
Absolutely. We are not adding people to the department. What Assistant Superintendent Taveras is doing is restructuring the department. She is ensuring that multiple people are well-versed in multiple jobs. In the past, we used to have individualists who focused on, we had one person who did certificated, one person who did classified, one person who did leaves, one person who, so what she has done is she has regrouped the same number of employees to ensure that there are at least two members who are able to do that same job in case one person is absent. The work does not skip a beat. We have had a director position and a supervisor position in HR in the past. I could not tell you when that was, but it has existed in the past. This position is not adding to the budget whatsoever. Staff has already included more than $750,000 worth of administrator cuts in the budget. And we are not releasing employees. No one is losing their job. And we have been able to recoup the money, the additional money to pay for this position in existing vacant positions that will not be affecting the work of the school district. It is absolutely imperative that our human resources department is nimble and aggressive and proactive in ensuring that we hire the best and the brightest. And that means visiting colleges, not those that are near us, but others, and not solely attending the same job fairs that everybody attends in the county. So we are continuing to compete from the same pool of candidates. Principal Asen is most impressive. He has been in our district for 18 years. He has been a teacher, an assistant principal, and a principal. And what most interests me about Principal Asen joining the HR department is that he has been a customer He has been a customer as an administrator and as a principal, and he has been on the receiving end of HR continuing to settle for employees that simply are not supporting our kids. And so I do not want to settle anymore. I want to make sure that Diana Tavares has her weekends back. She has been working every single day, even during break, to ensure that HR continues to improve its practices. So I want to publicly thank you for that. And we are finally providing the support that you need to make sure that our district is resourced appropriately to have the best human resources department in the county, and if not the state. So that was the thinking behind this election. This is not an added cost to the budget, and it is a position that we sorely need.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we move on to a motion? Trustee Marquez?
So I understand the change, and you mentioned, Dr. Garcia, the multiple responsibilities. Those that are going to receive those multiple responsibilities, have they been notified? Are they okay with it? I mean, do they have the bandwidth to take on those other responsibilities?
Yes, and that is something that, I mean, I could pivot back to you, Assistant Superintendent Tavares, that there has been some ongoing coaching and support, and the team is ready. I would like to also add that what is unique about Morgan Hill Unified is that we are a personnel commission district, and not every district is a personnel commission. And that personnel commission has to have its own director. And in this case, Reina, who is the classified AXA HR of the year, she is the administrator in support of the Personnel Commission. There are not that many personnel commissions in this state, as I mentioned earlier. And so that is unique in our district, that we have an extra body that oversees our hiring practices with respect to classified, which necessitates the need for an administrator that can solely support the classified efforts as called for by the Personnel Commission regulations.
And to add to that, our HR staff is very excited about the cross-training that has been taking place. They are thrilled to get the additional training. They are thrilled to have the stability. Prior to my arrival, there were some issues with getting things done because balls were getting dropped, people weren't sure what to do, and people were absent, and then the work would stop. Now we have at least 2 people trained for any one job in the district, so that if something comes up with a leave of absence, we have 2 people that can do leave of absence. So we don't have employees waiting, and those are really time-sensitive issues for our employees. They deserve to have good service. And so that's something we talk a lot about in the HR team, that our staff at the sites and our staff at the district level deserve to have good service all the time. And that's what we're working towards. And our staff is really passionate about it. And I'm open to any questions you might have.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say thank you for that. I mean, it's unfortunate that there are some that are losing their jobs, but it's also a positive outcome. So thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, I'd like to add a few of my own comments. My many years now involved with the district, probably the most common complaint I've had from site administrators, you're visiting or whatever, and they don't say any, just kind of like, hey, while you're here. And the capacity of our HR department to respond in a timely fashion, whether it's an urgent situation or an ongoing thing, that has been brought to me personally many times. And I'm not naming names, when it rises to a certain level, then I'll, pass it on to the super. And this has been over a period of many years. And I really appreciated, when I had a chance to hear from Mr. Asen about his objective. One of the things he mentioned straight off is we need to make sure to be getting the best possible people in every position. And so that speaks to actually, human resources can be a compliance department, which is what in schools and businesses all over, it often, because there's so much to do from a compliance point of view, that if you restrict the capacity in that department, what you get is compliance, staying out of legal trouble. But when do you work on employee development and employee selection and slotting people in the right place? So, yeah, I understand Trustee Altman's point and concern, but in this case, I'm certainly very supportive of this this action. I think it's what we need to do to move our district forward. So, with that said, I'm going to make the motion to approve the item as submitted. Now we can make a motion in a second. We can have further discussion before voting, if that's okay. So, and maybe there will be no second, and we'll see. But I'm making the motion to approve as submitted. And do we have a second for that?
To approve and submitted?
Yes, by staff.
I second.
Okay. So motion and second. Further discussion, please, Trustee Gardner.
So I guess from my perspective, just listening to the response or the rebuttal, I guess, it sounds to me like we're almost indicating that we haven't had fantastic employees in the past. I mean, in my tenure on the board, I've seen the turnover and we've lost phenomenal employees. So I'm a little, I'm wondering or a little confused in reconciling saying, oh, we need to go after the best and the brightest, when from my perspective, I think we've had some of the best and the brightest. So I don't know, I'm scratching my head on this.
Thank you. Please, Vice President Andrade.
Okay. Hello, all right. I think I'm speaking from the point of view of somebody who has gone through the onboarding process of Gilroy Unified, San Jose Unified, and Morgan Hill Unified. And I can tell you, when I went through the onboarding process here, that was, I think, 7, 8, maybe 9 years ago, vastly different. Each, and that's all I'll say. So I see the need for the restructuring of duties, and especially in terms of onboarding, because again, like I said, vastly different experiences at 3 different districts. So that is all I'll say.
Thank you. Trustee Altman?
No issues with the restructuring. When I was a site administrator, if I needed someone in HR, I'd get an immediate response. The system has not, in my perspective, has been functional in the past. And so if it comes to needing more, we have 4 non-administrative employees and 3 administrative employees. That seems pretty top-heavy to me. And I just think that it's a position that's not going to be touching students directly. And right now, in our current situation, when we're looking at what to cut, I don't want to be cutting site personnel and hiring DO administrators.
I think it's about right-sizing departments. If we're to compare the number of administrators that are in a given department, for example, I'll use special ed. Special ed has a director and 3 coordinators, so a total of 4 administrators to 2 administrative support. It's exactly what the special ed department needs. It is not top-heavy. It's right-sizing according to what each department oversees. I'm going to disagree that HR does not touch our students wholeheartedly, because it is the department that touches every student, because it hires the personnel that will be supporting our students in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And every year since I have been in this district, and I have longitudinal data points, we release a lot of staff. And that is because, I won't go into the details, we're not selecting the correct staff to begin with. We need to be right-sized in Human Resources Department, because it is the first department that welcomes the employees and supports them while they are here. And it is the last department that our employees see when they retire or move on to another position. It is absolutely necessary to right-size human resources.
Were you raising your hand or just thinking? Trustee Munson.
I wasn't necessarily raising my hand, but I wasn't sure if I should save my comments for now or the budget.
That's your choice.
I know. So I was just kind of just
So I mean, if you,
thinking
pertaining to this item in particular, yeah.
well, it kind of pertains, right? I mean, because we're in a oops. We are going to be needing to make some decisions in the next couple of years. So just taking this into consideration, is this something that can we afford it? Do we need to do it? You know, those things need to be looked at. I mean, I understand we need to right size or, you know, a department or something, but there are going to be some tough questions and cuts that are going to have to come. So if this is where, you know, we value this and we want to put our money towards it, then that needs to happen. And if not, then we don't. But we have to look at all of that to know that we are not in a good financial spot. We can't just keep going about our business like we are. We need to look at it. Just actually just came to my mind that, you know, kids are going to be having a financial class, right? It's mandatory that they have finances or whatever. And I think that's amazing because a lot of people don't have those skills. And then they find themselves in positions that they need to right size. So I'm just saying, we need to think about it. We need to make this decision with the whole perspective in mind of where we're going, where we want to go, and where our finances are going to take us.
That was precisely our collective thought behind bringing this position forward and this candidate forward. In our analysis of our departments, we are right-sizing the departments, and so we have been zeroing out positions that we feel are no longer needed and they're vacant. And so this director of HR is not costing the district any money. It's not additional money. We will continue to proceed with the over $750,000 worth of administrator cuts. That's on an ongoing basis. And the Mahela group is not growing. It's decreasing. And so I want to make sure that I address, you know, the perception that we're adding Mahela members. Actually, we're not. We are dramatically reducing Mahela members. And again, it's a position that as a superintendent and as cabinet we see is needed, and we urge you to approve the motion as submitted.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, knowing the superintendent and assistant superintendent and how this is not something they do lightly or blithely, and fully aware of the financial constraints we're under. So I think it's I know it's not something just being done without consideration of exactly the factors Trustee Munson is highlighting from my point of view. That said, I don't know if the student board member can vote or wants to vote on an item of this type.
For personnel, no.
Personnel, no, so you're off the hook. I think we've had the discussion. So maybe I'll ask our administrator to call a roll call vote so I don't have to try and count. If you just, you know, go through us in one name at a time and say yay or nay, and then we'll see where we are. Is that okay? Thank you.
Trustee Munson?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Nay.
Trustee Marquez? Yay. Trustee Altman?
No.
Trustee Gardner?
Nay.
Trustee Northrop Gaddis?
Aye.
Aye or yes. Or,
yay,
yeah,
yes.
you can be Old English or Modern English, whatever you prefer.
Trustee Andrade?
Yes.
Trustee Warner?
Yes, aye.
With 5 yes. 3 no.
4 and 3, okay. That completes that item. We'll move on to item K1. Or actually,
Congratulations.
okay, so let's it's 7:39. Let's take a stretch break until 7:45. Everybody can move around and do what you need to do. Thank you. Otherwise, it adds up to 8. Thank you. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Thank you.
Sorry about that. My husband has a special ring and I have everyone else on sign.
No, I understand. Yeah, I do the same thing. My phone has it like, only if you're on my like start contact, can you punch through? So I get it. No. You got to take care of your family first, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure it was just like, oh, where'd you put the kids' socks or something, you know what I mean?
Well, that's between you and him. That's not my.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, yeah, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, well.
I'm glad she did, yeah.
Not now, yeah.
Region 20. School board members from any of the districts can apply to be delegates. You've seen in the packet that was attached. I have a hard copy. I hope not everybody printed hard copies, but to the agenda item. So everybody that wants the job, in some case, like so we have, in this case, there are 4 seats. There are 4 current incumbents that are hoping to be reelected. There are 3 challengers that hope to, take one of those seats. So typically, these are people that are experienced and involved in their local school boards. I mean, I happen to be familiar with all of them because the work I've done through the county association and others. But so they put in their nomination paperwork, and then all the 31 school boards in our county are getting this and asked as boards to vote. That all gets sent into CSBA and compiled. And from all those votes, 4 people will be selected. I think they meet twice a year. What's that? Twice a year, yeah. To do the work. I've known many of the folks doing that work. I've not been a delegate. People have said, "Why don't you run?" I said, "No, thank you. I have enough jobs." And every time I've seen this, having been lucky to know the people on it, like, wow, he's amazing. She's amazing. I mean, they're all. I can tell you from what I know of these candidates, they're all solid people that care deeply about students and communities and are in this work for what I would call the right set of reasons. Yeah. So that's what this is. It's something, we as a group have to come up with what we want our vote to be. It'll only end up being Morgan Hill Unified School District's vote. And so kind of it's interesting coming up with 4 out of in this case, 7. So does that give the background? Please, Trustee Munson.
Just going to ask, can you read off the 4 incumbents?
Yeah, so Teresa Castellanos? Is that
Castellanos.
Gringo here, sorry. Elizabeth Halliday, Vaughn Lay, Naomi Nakano Matsumoto, Jorge Pacheco, George Sanchez, and Vishali Sirke. Who's running the incumbents are Teresa, Vaughn, Jorge, and George.
And the ballot was attached to the agenda item?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw it. I didn't see which one were the incumbents and the.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, just since I've had the chance to get to know and in some cases work with a lot of these folks, they're all wonderful. My only kind of recommendation is Jorge is now on the Santa Clara County Office of Education. We also have Jessica Spicer, who is continuing for another year as a CSBA delegate. She and Jorge were both elected to the County Office of Education simultaneously. I don't think it's great, out of the 31 districts plus the county office, to have 2 of the seats from the county office. I think, representation broadly across districts, and often think about large districts, small districts, well-funded, so kind of not only the kind of characteristics of the individuals, but also what their perspective is important. So, and I mean, Jorge is an amazing individual. He, up until recently, was president of the California Latino School Boards Association. I mean, I have nothing but respect and admiration for him, but, my suggestion would be that, and since Jessica is continuing, there's probably shouldn't be him, even though I like him so much. And if you're listening, Jorge, I'm sorry. It's not personal. It's structural. So I don't, any other questions, comments? Folks had a chance to look through the various application paperwork.
How many questions?
Hmm?
No, fine.
Okay.
You passing these out and we vote?
Well, no, I mean, so hopefully we'll come up with, is this also attached, I think?
Yeah, it's attached.
It's attached to the agenda item, the one I have, the ballot.
So we all have to agree.
Yes, and at the end of the day, we will submit one piece of paper
Got it.
for all of us. We could, quickly make copies and have everyone mark theirs up and then see. I mean, that's a process we could use.
Can I just make a suggestion that you
Please
read
do.
off the 4 that you feel are most qualified, and then we can discuss those? Well, you had an opinion, so.
Yeah.
Can you make a suggestion that you give us 5 minutes to review the document again?
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I was a little.
Part of why I'm breathing heavily, the first time I was here doing this, our experienced board member was Mary Patterson, who knew all these people. So Mary, what should we do? So it's like, wow, this is deja vu, but I'm wearing Mary's hat. But
Yeah.
okay, we'll take 5 minutes for people to do a little bit more homework, and then we'll come back to it.
You want to reconvene?
Yeah, so we will adjourn at 7:53 for a 5-minute thought break.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Trustee Altman has a work-related urgency she's taking care of, so she will be back a little later, but she asked us to carry on. So we'll carry on with this item. I think we've had kind of a little ad hoc, 1 or 2 person group here. Would you like to make a recommendation?
Yes. I'd like to make a recommendation that we move forward with candidate Cirque from Los Altos ESD, candidate Castellanos from San Jose USD, candidate Lee from Eastside Union High School District, and Matsumoto from Fremont Union High School District. L-E, yes. Or is
Yeah.
it Lee or Lai? Okay.
I think she pronounces her name Von Lai.
Von Lai.
Yeah.
I think it's Lai.
She's of Vietnamese descent.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
First time I met her and called her Van, she was Vaughn.
Vaughn,
Sorry. I remember my mistake.
My apologies to you, Vaughn.
Okay, so I'll take that as a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, and we have trustee Altman abstaining because she had to leave the room for a moment. Sorry? Absent, I'm sorry, absent is, sorry, that's the other A word. Very good. We will move on to item K2. And I believe Assistant Superintendent Chang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Horner, and good evening. Oh, is it on? Hello? It's on, okay. Testing? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you. Good evening, President Horner, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Garcia.
Sorry?
It's on?
I don't.
It sounds on.
There, can
Yes,
we have
testing.
the,
testing.
All right, there we
Okay,
go.
I need
There
to
we
get
go.
closer. Sorry about that.
Your inner rock and roll star, get in there.
All right, so thank you. Tonight we'll be presenting the district's second interim report. And with that, some of the topics. Next slide, please. Some of the topics that we'll be covering is what and why we have to do second interim. We'll go over the changes from first interim to second interim in the general fund for the current year. We'll provide you with a set of key assumptions that we use to incorporate in our multi-year projection. And then we'll show you the multi-year projection, a 4-year this time. And we'll show you a snapshot of other funds that the district is operating, and then next steps and future consideration. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do we have to do the second interim? It is required by law. As you can see there, we have to update our budget multiple times during the year. During the budget cycle, we're at second interim, and we have to present this report to the county office by March 15th for them to review and comment back. The next 2 steps in the budget cycle is sometime in June, we'll be bringing the proposed budget and also the estimated actuals, proposed budget for next year and estimated actuals for this year. And then once June 30 is done, staff in the fiscal department will start to close their books and then bring the unaudited actuals in September of next year, or this following September. Next slide, please. The second interim report is consisted of actual data as of January 31st, and then using that data to project where we're going to end in the current year, and also we have to do a multi-year projection. So we have to do two years in addition to this year. For our second interim report, we'll be certifying ourselves as positive, which means that we'll be able to meet our financial obligation in the current and also 2 subsequent year. Next slide, please. Okay, so this chart shows you a comparison of the unrestricted general fund for the current year from first interim to second interim. Starting with the revenue section, you see that there's not a lot of changes here. The most significant change is in the contribution from the unrestricted general fund to the restricted general funds. That amount has decreased to the tune of about $509,000. The main reason for that is we were provided with updates from the County Office of Education in terms of the cost of county programs. At first interim, sorry about that. At first interim, we had projected to serve or to send about 30 students to them. We got update numbers. That number came to about 25. So just a reduction of 5 students results in a little over $500,000 of savings. So those were the significant change in revenue. In terms of expenditures, not a lot of changes. Certificated went up slightly by about $194,000. That's mainly we added an independent teacher in January. And then classified staff went down about 108. And we reduced some classified staff that as well. And then all the other line items are pretty insignificant. In the total and net, in the unrestricted general fund, there's a savings or improvement of about $324,000, which if you compare the reserve from first to second interim, the reserve level, including Fund 17, at first interim, it was 35.8. That improved a little bit to 36.2. At first interim, the percentage of reserve was 24.33. At second interim, it went up slightly to 24.45. On the restricted general fund, next slide, please. Not a lot of change there either. The offsetting reduction in special ed contribution is actually an increase to our revenue in the restricted side. So if you take the total of your local revenue or LCFF and also local revenue, that comes to the 509 that we're seeing in the reduction of contribution from unrestricted to restricted. Very minimal changes in total expenditure. At first interim, our carryovers was projected to be about 4.1. That went down to about 3.9. So a slight reduction in the unrestricted carryover. Right here.
At the very bottom line.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the major assumptions that we built into our second interim and multi-year projection is the LCFF calculation. There's no change this year. The COLA remained the same. Total revenue is estimated to be about 94.7. Moving over to 25-26, based on the governor proposal with the new TK add-on rate, you'll see that the LCFF entitlement went up slightly, even with the reduction of COLA. Because COLA at first interim was 2.93, it dropped to 2.43, but with the increase of the TK add-on, the net increase to LCFF entitlement is about $357,000 for year 25-26. And then moving on to 26-27, using also the new TK add-on rate, COLA slightly went up from 3.08 to 3.52. And the total net increase in LCFF entitlement is about $794,000. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the additional key assumptions that we incorporate into the multi-year projection. The first line is salaries. That includes step and column and longevity, equates to about 1.75%. And we built that into each year of our budget. Employer contribution, we're using the current cap rate now that we're paying for our employees' contributions or premium. The STRS rate is 19.1. That doesn't change over the next 2 years. For PERS, this year is 27.05. Next year, it's 20.4. It's actually a slight reduction from where we're at first interim. And then in year 26, 27, the PERS rate is 27.5, also a slight reduction. At first interim is at 28%. Special ed contributions, we built in some additional increases. This year's about 15.9, almost $16 million. In 25, 26, 16.38. And then in year 26, 27, $16.77 million. This line item represents the previous or existing one-time money. The two major pots in this money are the Learning Recovery Block Grant and the Arts, Music, Instructional Material Discretional Block Grant. Those two amount equates to about $4 million. These two funding sources reside on the restricted general fund. So when those funds expire this year, all the salaries and expenditures will need to move from the restricted to the unrestricted side, unless there's some additional cuts. And so once we do that, the unrestricted general fund will absorb that $4 million going forward, unless additional actions are taken. One of the new one-time money that the governor is proposing is the Student Support Discretionary Block Grant. We're estimating to receive about a little over $2.3 million in year 25, 26. And so with that, we're using a placeholder to offset the revenue in the restricted general fund. And so it's a one-time money. We're assuming we get that money next year, and it'll be depleted that same year as well. So that's why you don't see any carryovers in year 27, 26, 27. And then other additional reduction that's worth mentioning, in year 24, 25, these are all incorporated in the first interim. It's the $465,000 in closed positions, and then $800,000 in special ed savings that were identified. And then we also factored in the fiscal stabilization plan. They're outlined here for you, a reduction of 8 certificated FTEs, totaling a little over $1 million. 4 management position to the tune of about $750,000, reducing contracts and travel in the amount of $500,000, reduced program speed to SCOE or to SCCOE, Santa Clara County Office of Education, about $300,000, and then reduce overtime in the amount of $100,000. And that will continue as well once we make those reductions. Next slide, please. Okay, so based on those assumptions, this is the multi-year projection for the unrestricted general fund. And so in terms of revenue, we're projecting this year a total revenue of about 83.7. Moving on to 25, 26, projected total revenue of about 84.5. In year 26, 27, total projected revenue of $86.6 million. And then in year 27, 28, total projected revenue of about $89.2 million. In terms of the expenditures, total expenditures for the current year is projected to be about 92.8. In year 25, 26, total revenue, expenditures of 93.9. In year 26, 27, total expenditures of 97.6. And then in year 27, 28, total expenditures of 99.6. In terms of the reserve, with respect to reserve, we're projecting this to end this year with about $36.1 million. Which equates to 24.45% of our reserve percentage. Moving over to 25, 26, we're projecting to end next year with about 26.7. That's 19.4% of our reserve. In year 26, 27, we're projecting to end that year with about 15.6. That equates to 11.03%. And then in the last year of multi-year projection, we're projecting to end that year with about 5.3 in total reserve. That equates to about 3.72%. Next slide, please. This is the multi-year projection for the restricted general fund. Starting with this year's total revenue, $45.9 million. Total revenue in next year, 46.6. In year 26-27, total revenue 44.8. And then in year 27-28, total revenue of $45.1 million. On the expenditure side, a total expenditure for this year, $55.1 million. Next year, $46.4 million. In year 26-27, total expenditures of $44.5 million. And then in the last year, 27-28, projected total expenditures of $44.7. And then in terms of carryover, we're projecting to end this year with about $3.9 million in carryover. That amount slightly goes up to a little over $4 million, and then 4.3 in 26-27, and then year 27-28, about 4.7. Next slide, please. And this is just a snapshot of all the other funds that the districts operate. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the fund includes adult ed, child development, cafeteria fund, deferred maintenance, special reserve funds, post-employment benefits, the building fund, which is a bonds fund, capital facilities funds, which is where we record all of our developer fees, the Melrose funds, and then our bond interest and redemption program funds. Okay, so in terms of next steps, we're requesting the board to approve the second interim tonight so we can send it to the county office by March 15th, or actually by tomorrow. And then we're eagerly waiting for the result of the May revise. By that time, we'll have updated information in terms of what the budget's going to look like for next year, both at the state level and how it trickles down to the local level. And then, after tonight, staff will be working on developing next year's budget, and we'll bring the proposed budget sometime in June for the adoption in June as well. Okay.
If I may add,
Yes.
Talia, do you mind going back keep going. So this is what's required, as the board knows, but I want to make sure that the community knows, is a 3-year, multi-year projection. The board has given us direction to provide a 4th year. And so that's with the 27-28. I want to make it crystal clear that what you see in the 25-26 budget is the fiscal stabilization cuts. Those cuts then get carried over to 26-27. What you're not seeing in 26-27 are additional cuts that if the board directs me and my team to identify additional cuts for 25-26, those would then be incorporated into 26-27. And so what you are seeing in 26-27 and 27-28 are not new cuts. We will be making some cuts, but you're seeing a status quo only with a fiscal stabilization of the 1 year that gets carried over to the 26-27. Does that make sense?
I have one technical question, then I'll go to my colleagues here. Look on slide, I guess, 9, or any of them, actually, this, and it's probably because the state makes us do it this way, but I always wonder why other financing sources / contributions, which is basically special ed, why is that recorded as negative revenue, which is like the strangest way to account for something ever, rather than simply as an expense? Negative revenue is an expense, positive expense is revenue. I understand the signs and math, but it just is a matter of communication. Are we required to do it that way?
Yes. There's CSAM requires us to book certain entries certain ways. And if you look at it in terms of total revenue, this is actually reducing revenue in the unrestricted general fund to put it into the restricted general fund to cover some of those expenditures.
Still quacks like a duck that's called an expense to me. Sorry. Okay, because we have to, I guess, is the answer. This is a very peculiar way to do financial reporting from the non-education world.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, usually I go last, but I just wanted to ask that technical question. Colleagues, questions, comments? Vice President Andrade, please.
Okay. I want to thank you for your presentation. I think it's really clear that with respect to what Superintendent Garcia said, there's no additional spending. It's just basically, this is kind of like, we're being steady. This is like moving forward. If we don't change anything, this is just the outcome, correct?
Yes, yes.
So I think it's really clear then that we don't have a spending problem. I mean, I'm looking around the room and I see this tablecloth here from 1975. And the district office looks like it hasn't been remodeled in 40 years. So I guess my comment is, it seems as though we don't necessarily have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem. Because it looks like there's no increases in revenue as we continue to go. Is that a fair assessment, that revenue is going to remain pretty bleak? I'm looking at 27, or I think it was 26, 27, there's a decrease in revenue?
Well, in terms of, okay, so it depends on where you're looking at. In terms of LCFF dollars, there is a slight increase, just because it's a COLA that we're getting from the state. We're in a COLA environment now. 3-4 years ago, LCFF was getting some major investment. But now it's going to be pretty consistent. You know, we're going to be around 2 to 3% at the most. In terms of why you see some of the total revenues going down is our special education contribution keeps increasing every year to kind of, you know, dip into any additional funds that we get from LCFF.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustee Almond?
Problem is with that is it would be great if we had more revenue, but a lot of that's out of our hands. What we control is the expense and what we're spending. So I have that same issue in my personal life. What my first question is, what assumptions did you use regarding raises for staff as you built this out for several years?
We did not build anything in.
Okay, so that's just assuming no pay raises.
It's
correct.
Yeah, and typically districts don't build in any potential raise, especially when you're negotiation, because it's considered pathways negotiation because you already kind of have a number in your head.
Okay, I
So
wasn't sure if there was any kind of just industrial standard.
Yes, step and column is included.
In terms of reducing overtime, who will do the work? I mean, is there unnecessary overtime going on now? And if it isn't unnecessary, how will the work get done?
I wouldn't call it unnecessary. I think we just need to tighten it up. You know, sometimes we are, we need to set up, we're setting up a system in terms of any times that staff is requesting overtime, they need to be approved by a manager. And so, you know, we're looking at case by case just to make sure that every overtime that we authorize is warranted.
And what will be the cost associated with bringing students back from the county?
Right now, what we're building in is actually what the county is projecting for us. So we haven't built any additional potential savings where we're looking at to bring, you know, currently we're sending 25 students to the county office. We're looking at possibility bringing some more back that would generate some additional savings. Since we haven't, you know, finalized that plan yet, we have not incorporated that into any of our multi-year projections yet.
But isn't that savings of 300,000 already built in?
Yes, so that's a different population of students. So I was talking about special ed. This is the expelled students.
Right, that's what I mean. Right, so what's the cost? Where is that accounted for?
That is accounted
The
in.
fiscal stabilization plan.
Yes.
But there's still a cost. I mean, kind of like even if we have the money to buy something, it still costs us something.
If I may, my understanding of this item was that was a net savings from, reducing sending students to SEC-OE. So maybe, maybe we're not sending them $400,000, but we're spending 100. That's my understanding of this, but I might be wrong.
We send multiple students to the county, the expelled youth, yes, but we also, if I may repeat what Assistant Superintendent Chang mentioned, we currently send 25 students to the county. We brought back 4 this year, which resulted in a savings. You heard his presentation. We're looking at additional students. We're currently in the process of working through the IEP process, change of placement, et cetera. We want to make sure that we are thoughtful when we bring back the students. We want to make sure that we're providing the same level of care and support. I don't want to say this publicly because it's still in the works, but we do believe that we can bring additional students back, at least 5 students back, and we've costed that out. It's roughly $650,000 for these 5 students. Nothing has been finalized, but these are things that we continue to look at. Can we support these students in our district? We believe that we can, and the county continues to increase its fees, and 5 students for $650, it's outrageous. And so we feel that we can support the students in-house as well. So it's dynamic. It's dynamic. We send a lot of students to the county. We want to make sure that we bring them back. Does that answer your question?
I thought this was talking about expelled youth for the 300,000.
Yes, with those, that is part of the conversation. We're looking at the runway and the timeline that's required to bring them back through CDS code, et cetera. So we're working through the timeline. But we feel confident that we can reduce at least $300,000 in contributions to the county, if not more, and know that we are working on that to make sure that we bring the students, as many students back to us.
Right, but my question is, there's still going to be a cost associated because they need a teacher.
Yes, and so that's been part of our cost savings analysis. We're looking at the cost that we sent, the payment that we sent to the county, and the staffing required to welcome these students back, even when that's accounted for, Trustee Altman. With these particular 5 students, if we are successful in bringing them back, that's $650,000 worth of savings, already accounting for the additional staff if needed.
And the cost is, so the way I'm seeing it is we're saying we're going to save money here, which is awesome, but is in this budget also where the costs associated, is that actually in the budget now, or is that still being developed?
Sorry, Assistant Superintendent Chang, the team reduced in the budget and in the out years, what was included, the total cost of the budget stabilization plan, the fiscal stabilization plan. Those cuts have been made.
Right, but that's not the increased cost of bringing students back.
And so, as I said earlier, in our analysis of the cost of bringing students back, we looked at the savings and we also looked at how much it will cost. And even within all of that, we can save at least $650,000 with these 5 students. I don't know if that's not clear. I don't know what I'm missing. I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure that if we're saying we're going to be saving this money, we also say, here's the costs associated.
That's part of the analysis that we are doing internally, but for budget development, Assistant Superintendent Chang is looking at the total cost I'll stop. Yes.
If I can try rephrasing the question, the way I hear the question is this a net savings after whatever costs of bringing back, or is it a gross savings, right? So if we just stop paying an outside vendor, in this case, County Office of Ed, X dollars, but then we have Y dollars we have to pay to do that, are you reporting X or are you reporting X minus Y? I think that's the question, the net savings versus gross savings.
The cost and what we are saving and the cost to implement the receivership of the students. So it's X minus Y.
Yeah, so
it's a net savings.
It's
yes.
a net savings, not a gross savings. Is that the essence of your question, Trustee Altman? Thank you. Other questions, comments? Trustee Gardner.
Sorry, too many things in front of me here. So thank you for the presentation. I'm going to circle back to the concerns I've expressed before, because I feel the kind of the opposite of what Vice President Andrade said with regards to having a spending problem versus a funding problem. I believe we do not have a funding issue. I believe we have a spending issue. Doing some outside research, the Public Policy Institute of California estimates that funding increased nearly 32%. So this is between the increased state spending and one-time federal pandemic funds contributing to a record K through 12 funding levels in recent years. This is published by the Public Policy Institute of California, estimates that funding increased nearly 32% between 2018 and 2023-24. So if we're getting, and it can be debated from here until the cows come home, whether the funding is low, medium, high, that's not my point. My point is we've gotten from 2018, 2019 to 2023, 24, there has been a 32% increase in funding K through 12 overall. So to me, that registers as, okay, then if we've added an upswing of 32% in funding levels, K through 12 in the state, then clearly if we're still deficit spending, we're deficit spending. We have a spending issue, not a funding issue. And to me, it seems that we spent far less of our one-time COVID dollars on intensive tutoring, after-school programs, summer school programs, and far more of our one-time dollars were being spent on building out the wellness centers. Nothing against the wellness centers, but the wellness centers, the COVID dollars were meant to be spent on the one-time parameters or specifics, and they were not meant to be spent on programs that need to be funded in perpetuity. Yet, here we are. So going back to the reserves that we had in the past, it seems to me, and again, I've got a little too many things in front of me, one of the questions I wanted to focus on with you, Mr. Chang, is the reserves, going back to, oh gosh, is it slide? Is it the unrestricted general? Yeah. So we're going from a historical, from 2016, 17, all the way back to actually 2011 and 12, in the upwards of the 25 to 30% to even 40% reserves, combined general Fund 17 and our reserves, down to, because we had to absorb, or we've forfeited the Fund 17 fund balance to make this work. So we're at 24.45% this year. Then we're dropping in 27, 28 to under 4%. To me, that's an issue. So I think the spending, we need to be spending less and living within our means, especially when you have a state that's got we have some real issues. I mean, I think the Governor Newsom was asking for $40 billion from the feds with the fires. I mean, this state, it's not an endless source of funds that we're going to be able to interact with. And I'll get off I'll leave it at that.
Can I add some clarification?
Trustee Munson, then we'll come back to you, Vice President Andrade.
So I think we're all clear that there is a spending issue. I mean, it's clearly up here. If we continue the way we're going, I mean, we're going to be at our 3% in 2027, 28. And like Dr. Garcia said, that's without any direction from the board to make cuts. So I think it's clear that we're going to need to do that. We can't continue on in this path. It's just something that we're going to have to look at and go in that direction. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, we can't. I mean, it's clear to everybody that we can't. I mean, if we get down to our 3%, 2027, 28, and we need to use our reserves, we don't want to take a loan from the state. I mean, we don't want to get ourselves into more financial trouble, right? So I think we, as a board, need to look at this and maybe give some direction. Take corrective action so we can pay our financial obligations and be fiscally responsible.
Thank you. Vice President Andrade?
Yes, so I wanted to just clarify some things. I think the 32% that Trustee Gardner was referring to, that's an assumption that Morgan Hill Unified got a 32% increase in funds. When you said, statewide, yes, yes. And so, again, but in the state of California, not all school districts are funded equally. So my understanding is Oak Grove is a basic aid district. My understanding is Eastside Union High School is a basic aid district. San Jose Unified is a basic aid district. We are not. Basic aid, that's like a $2,000 to $3,000 per student difference. So when I say we have a revenue problem, we need to look at we have 7,900 students? So do the math, 3,000 at 7,900. What's the dollar figure there, right? Our salaries that we have here and our benefits are pretty comparable to our neighboring districts up north. So again, those costs are the same, right? We live in Santa Clara County. We have Santa Clara County costs. And so I think that we really need to look at, we have different formulas of income coming in. Gilroy Unified gets a different set of funding stream because they have a different student population. And so that's what I'm talking about in terms of revenue. Yes, we have decisions to make as a board for spending cuts, but we also have a decision at the board to problem solve. And part of problem solving is brainstorming and asking questions of what can we do to seek additional revenues? Because salaries are going to go up. So this financial budget concern that I keep hearing over and over and over again, is that same kind of energy, is that going to happen when we have negotiations? Because that's going to come from somewhere. So I get we keep dipping into the pot, but we also have to strategize and brainstorm and problem solve so that we do attract the best staff, certificated and classified. We do retain that staff, and we don't have to cut those jobs, right? I mean, we're seeing a trend right now at the federal level. What we're going to do, doge this whole thing? I mean, so it's really important that we understand that not all funding is equal. And so if we want to have these conversations, I don't think a lot of the public understands that there is a $2,000 to $3,000 per student spending difference. And if you go up the road even further in Palo Alto, there's like a $10,000 difference per student. So we have to really, I mean, we're talking about getting all this information out there. This is part of that.
Trustee Gardner, and then I'll have a few things to say.
I appreciate what you're saying, but that has never, to my knowledge, has never changed in this district. We've had the same funding we've had. The other districts have had the same funding sources they've had. That has not changed. So clearly we're doing something different. And my response to that is we're deficit spending.
Yes, and that was a 20% raise over 3 years in 2022 when I left, I believe. And each percentage point for the public that is watching at home, each percentage point is $1 million. So 20% over 3 years, that's $20 million. If I'm understanding correctly.
So I'll add a few comments to the topic. One, so I spent this morning with a small group at the Silicon Valley Education Foundation, which is Lisa Andrews there. Dr. Andrews has been telling the story quite eloquently and now is working with one of our state senators on a possible constitutional amendment to address that thing that has been the problem forever, that your Palo Alto gets double the funding. It's not 10,000, it's about 15,000 right now. Palo Alto Unified has to spend for each of their students compared to where a district like ours is. And our costs are not that radically different. So in fact, yeah, I highly recommend watching the video they put together called Zip Code Red. And it goes through Santa Clara County pointing out how, we say we believe as a society in meritocracy and all this, but the truth is the high wealth districts have extremely well-resourced schools and the low wealth districts don't. And we end up, stuck around tables like this, cutting babies in half like in the Old Testament. And that's just it's a fundamentally unfair and wrong thing that's been part of California law for decades now. So, that's not going to get fixed in the next 16 months, but, I'm glad there are people highlighting that issue, because that's a root cause of a lot of what's going on here. When we get to people saying, well, we need to be able to pay. I would love to pay as well as Palo Alto.
Here we go.
But that's not gonna, that's a long-term effort that needs to be taken. It's not gonna happen in the next year or two, but I certainly encourage everyone to participate in that. And the one thing, as I mentioned, as a future agenda item last time, we can do is put forward a parcel tax to our community. Say, look, either we're going to have to make these cuts and not have any raises, or you can approve, putting extra money into the pot and see, where the taxpayers are at, whether they're like, no, just get rid of the wellness centers and the things you added with one-time funds because, you can't afford it, so don't do it. That's one point of view. Another point of view is, if it costs me a little more to do this, I'm willing to pay. So I strongly believe that, over the next year or so, we need to put that in front of our local voter and say, what's important to you? What are you willing to pay for or not? And have a list of, okay, here are the things we're going to have to cut if we don't do that. Or if we do that, we don't have to make those reductions. There's no, as we talk about this, there's no magic way to, take a $9 or $10 million a year structural deficit, in my opinion, and finesse it away with, removing an administrator here. I mean, there are things we can do and are doing, but I don't think you get to $9 or $10 million with that. So I think a combination of things will be taken. But so the one thing that actually is within our community's control to change the revenue picture would be a parcel tax. And I think I believe we need to have the courage to put that to the voters. And I see at least one of my colleagues is shaking her head, no, that's fine. Anyhow, so and Trustee Altman, please.
Thank you. I also want to point out our staffing did increase pretty significantly, and it was needed to support the students coming back from COVID. But not just the pay raise, but also the increase in staff, contributing factors to the situation.
Yeah, both are true.
And while it would be awesome if we get a parcel tax, I think that as a board, we that's 2 years down the line. Well, a year and a half down the line, almost two whole
Then it
years
should go
down the
March or
line.
November. Either a year or a year and a half.
Well, the election's in November.
There's a March
oh.
and a November. There's a primary in March and an
Oh,
election.
got it.
You can do
Okay.
either one.
So either one. So we're not looking though until that's 2026 then. So we're going to have to, we're going to be in the situation, which I think also with the BAC, to identify cuts so that we, if it doesn't happen, then we're ready to go with the hope, but hope's not a strategy, that we don't have to make the cuts. So we just have to keep our eyes open moving forward, in my opinion, regarding what are we going to do, because obviously we cannot continue in this direction with the deficit spending forever.
You and I agree on that.
Hopefully everyone here agrees that we can't continue with the deficit spending.
Other questions or comments? Trustee Marquez?
Question. It's probably going to sound very naive, but with the growing housing in Morgan Hill and all these families that are moving over here, has that been factored into the projections and the numbers?
Yes, we're basing on our projection based on our demographic studies. Unfortunately, all these housing development hasn't generated the student population that we had desired. So actually, we're finally just almost kind of stabilizing our enrollment rather than families that are moving in or they don't come with kids or.
Yeah, the birth rate is down. We're one of the few districts, my understanding is our enrollment is steady.
Yeah.
And that's steady
Yeah, we're not
because
closing,
of
we're not
people
closing
being-
schools like most of our neighbors.
Yeah, that's
are.
true. That's true.
That's the other
And
thing.
it's two counter trends.
Interesting.
And the other thing, if I can just add really quickly, is most people who are going to spend 1.5 or $2 million on a home are, they're going to send their kids to private school.
Private schools are charter. That's unfortunate.
But even, so when you look at enrollment in private schools countywide, it's kind of flat to down as well. So people often assume, and in fact, one of the charter schools in San Jose closed recently. So this is hitting different districts at different rates and in different ways. I mean, so the main driver, as I look at the data, is the fewer children per household. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but as also not as you can, those that can afford a $1.5 million housing unit also tend to have far fewer kids. That's on average, not in any individual, on average, the wealthier the family, the fewer children they have. And it's kind of backwards land, right? Because the ability of supporting children is very expensive. But that's what the data says. Anyhow, most of this is going to be for our work around next year's budget. It's a very important discussion. The second interim is just kind of a quick minor tweak on the year in progress. Do we have any more questions or comments on this topic?
For your presentation. It was very thorough and very clear.
So just to be clear, what accepting this report will do tonight, presuming we have a majority that accepts it, is to submit it to the county, and the multi-year projections are just that, our projections. The budget for the year we're in is something that is actually being, operated against. So given that, any other salient questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the second interim report. Okay, thank you. Didn't catch the hand wave. So Vice President Andrade, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Trustee Altman. Student board member, any comments and/or a vote? Thank you. Okay, Student board member Faruqi and all other trustees, if you agree, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining?
Nay.
Nay, okay. Very good, thank you. So we have two more items on our agenda before adjourning. Does anyone have future agenda items they would like to bring up for discussion? Trustee Altman? Or?
I'd like an update on the Saturday Academy, since it'll have started.
Okay.
Number of students who attend. How about that?
I just add the cost, the cost savings compared to how much it costs to run it.
Do you need a board vote on that, or is that something you're going to do as part of a superintendent report anyhow? So okay, that'll be provided in a later superintendent report. We don't have to take action directing staff in that regard. Any other future agenda items related? Seeing none, I will move on to item L1, approving recommendation for the expulsion and rehabilitation plan for student E 2425-03. We discussed the details in closed session. We do not discuss such details in open session. Do we have a motion to approve the plan? Trustee Altman? Is that a question or a motion?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we approve the recommendation for expulsion and rehabilitation plan E-2425-002. Three.
This is really good for my neck flexibility exercises.
Tennis.
I was really close.
Do we have a second then?
I second.
Second, Vice President Andrade. This is not one for you, student board members, so for the other trustees, all in agreement, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. And anyone who would like to stay in the parking lot is welcome to. Other than that, this meeting is adjourned at 8:50.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Good night.